What's up and welcome to FPL Today. I'm your host JNO, welcome to the channel and welcome to my review of the top signings in the Premier League that could be differentials in the Fantasy Premier League game. In this episode I'm going to look at players that have joined the Premier League through transfers that we don't know too much about, who could potentially hit the ground running and could be a surprise highlight in our Fantasy Premier League season. But before we get into the video, if FPL content is something you want in your subscription box, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you are notified when I upload videos for Fantasy Premier League and also when I'm going live. And if you want to support the channel in any way, check out the links in the description, including a link to my Patreon page where you can join my Discord channel and you will get content there early and additionally extra access to me and my thoughts on the Fantasy Premier League. Anyway, on to the video, and first off we are starting with Bobby Reid at 5.5 million from Cardiff. Cardiff have recently signed him to join their side and all of his experience is from the Championship or lower, but Bobby Reid has got some great stats from the Championship, which could mean that he is ready to step up to the Premier League and get some attacking points and returns for our Fantasy Premier League side. At 5.5 million, he would be your third striker and potentially not too much of a risk to be putting in there and allow you to have better players in other positions. But for a player with 46 appearances last year, 19 goals and 7 assists isn't too shabby. We've also got shots per game at 1.9 and key passes at 1.2, with a man of the match rating at 3 and an average rating at 7.11. Now my issue with Bobby Reid is in a Cardiff side that potentially don't look as strong as other sides that got promoted in my mind, and apologies to any Cardiff fan that disagrees. I think 1.9 shots per game and 1.2 key passes isn't incredibly high, which means potentially you're going to have defenders who are better in the Premier League and keepers who are better in the Premier League, stifling the amount of returns Bobby Reid could get. So do I see him getting 19 goals and 7 assists? No. I mean, if he did, he would be a must-have in your side for 5.5 million. I think a more mediocre return of just under the 10 goals mark with assists just under 5 is more likely, but at 5.5 million he can definitely help you spend more cash elsewhere in better players. We've then got James Maddison, who joined Leicester City from Norwich for quite a big transfer fee, over 20 million. In the game, he's going to cost you 6.5 million. And to be honest, I see him as kind of a transfer in to replace the now leaving Riyad Mahrez. Again, his stats come from the Championship, however he did have very good stats as well, just very similar to Bobby Reid, and potentially in a Leicester City side that is used to the Premier League and could hopefully build on their finish from last year and have a decent season. James Maddison could benefit from being in a side that has got Premiership experience. Last season he had 42 appearances with 2 substitute appearances and got 14 goals and 8 assists, with shots per game at 2.6 and key passes at 2.8, with 8 man of the match performances and an average rating at 7.43. If I was going to take a punt on Reid or Maddison, it would most likely be Maddison, purely because those shots per game and key passing statistics are high enough that even if the acclimatisation to the Premier League does take a knock on his stats are already particularly high for a £6.5 million midfielder. We then move on to Mohamed Elneny at 6.5 million at Southampton. Now unfortunately I don't have a multitude of stats with this guy because for some reason Who Scored doesn't show things like key passes, shots per game or assists for this guy, but I do know he's got 32 appearances with 1 substitute appearances in the league that he played in, the Swiss league, and got 11 goals, which isn't too bad a return for a midfielder at 6.5 million. Now, as far as I'm aware, he's also got 2 goals in the Champions League, or potentially 2 assists or something like that, against very good opposition, and is a very fast player, could fit the Premier League very well. So he would be something of a punt to me, just because I can't find out too much information on him, even when I checked Transfermarkt. Again, the statistics weren't really highlighting the kind of player we're looking at, but he is someone that could hit the ground running and could be a very good differential, because if people can't find the statistics on him, he may not be someone that a lot of people look to. We now go to West Ham, and as you all know, I do follow West Ham as my wife does support them, and West Ham look like they're doing a lot of transfer business very early, and Yarmolenko is one of them that looks very promising from an attacking fantasy points perspective. Now, Yarmolenko was bought for around 16, 17 million, I believe, off the top of my head, and will cost you 7 million in the Fantasy Premier League game. Now, last season in the Bundesliga, I think he had injuries, but I'm not too sure. It could be that he was just a rotation player playing off the bench, that kind of thing, but I think he had an injury, and potentially that is why he's been sold. Could be an injury risk. However, with 13 appearances, 5 substitute appearances on top of that, he got 3 goals and 2 assists, which isn't amazing. But shots per game was at 1.7 and key passes at 1.6 in the Bundesliga, which I consider pretty competitive. So I don't think the stats should drop too much on his move into the Premier League. Man in the match rating at 1 and an average rating at 6.80. Again, the stats aren't amazing. However, I think, especially if he wants to prove himself, in this West Ham squad that are adding a lot of talent, he could be an outside bet. However, I'd be more willing to go for the next player I look at if he is at the same price, and that is Felipe Anderson. Now, he's not been put into the Fantasy Premier League game yet. He may not be a midfielder, but if he is a midfielder at 7 million, which potentially he might be higher because of the big transfer value that was put on him in this transfer, which I believe is around the 50 million mark or 40 million mark or something like that. I believe Felipe Anderson could be more expensive. However, with Felipe Anderson, you're getting a player that from the Serie A got 9 appearances with 12 substitute appearances, got 4 goals and 7 assists, with shots per game at 1.3, but key passes at 2.1. So he could be the main man, almost taking that Dimitri Payet role in that West Ham side. Also, with 3 man of the match performances and an average rating at 7.45, Felipe Anderson would be the one I would take a punt on from the West Ham side if I was looking at him and Yarmolenko and the prices weren't too different. And then the final player we're looking at is Raúl Jiménez at 5.5 million from Wolves. Now, they've got him on loan, Wolves, from, I believe, Benfica, and potentially he could be their starting striker. And at 5.5 million, that is a very, very good price. Now, last year, he seemed to be a bit of a periphery player at Benfica with 6 appearances and 27 substitute appearances. However, in that he got 6 goals and 6 assists. So being involved in 12 goals when that is the kind of role you're playing in the side is pretty decent. Shots per game was at 1.5, key passes at 0.7. Now to me, Liga NOS is slightly below all the main 5 top leagues in Europe, so that could drop down in my opinion. But 1 man in the match rating, a 6.59 average rating. He could again be looking to prove himself as a player and could do very well at Wolves, who of course do have a lot of talented players in that team, which they've been building not just during this pre-season, but have been building during their championship run last season when they got the likes of Ruben Neves and more, who are very, very good players. So potentially you could be seeing a Wolves side that overperform what we expect them to, and then Raúl Jiménez leading that line could do very well for himself. Anyway guys, hopefully you enjoyed that video today. If you did, please hit that like button and that notification bell so you are notified when my videos go up live, and also when I go live to answer your questions. Please do join the streams if you have any personal questions for me or FPL related questions. Not sure I want the personal questions, but if they're safe and family friendly, I'll answer them. And also check out the links in the description down below if you do want to support the channel in any way. There's various ways you can do it, but the main way is through Patreon, where you do get access to my Discord channel, where there will be more FPL chat during the FPL season. I've been JNO, this has been FPL Today, and remember, it's all about the game.